If there ever was a movie that captured the millennial experience into its most distilled form, it is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This film celebrates the nice guy programming we underwent and exalts him as the hero in this tale. Let's take a look at Scott. He's weak, effeminate, unemployed, living in Toronto, Canada. He has a garage band and is dating a high schooler. Now, this type of behavior was not uncommon for the time. In fact, I knew many people who left small towns and moved to Toronto to do the exact same thing. The movie starts off pretty weak. Scott is gallivanting around town with his new girlfriend until he meets Ramona Flowers, the girl who is said to ruin a generation of women. Well, maybe so, but Scott ruined a generation of men too. So he spots Ramona at a party. She is alone, looking miserable, and in classic nice guy fashion, he talks to her about Pac-Man as his opening. By the way, she gives him zero warmth, zero interest. There is no chemistry. There is no substance between the interaction. But of course, Scott falls in love with her. And again, these movies always start off with zero romantic interest, zero chemistry from the women, but somehow his charm always breaks through that initial barrier and he prevails in his pursuit. Not to mention that most of the women in this movie are extremely depressed and cold, like his drummer. His drummer is pretty much the exact same character as Ramona Flowers, and so is that other girl who shows up from time to time and tells him not to date Ramona Flowers. They all have the same archetype. Now, at the party, it's revealed that Scotty Boy is a player, a lady killer. That's right, the little dweeb is surrounded by women at all times. This is the message from Hollywood. It's clear. You don't have to develop yourself physically or mentally. You can be a soft boy, video game addicted, unemployed man like Scott, and all the women will surround you. Just start a very bland garage band and you're good. Even after he breaks up with the high schooler, she continues to show up in the movie, stalk him, just to hammer home to the audience that Scott is really, really a desirable guy to women. And of course, this is the main axis of one of the plots, is that Scott is juggling between his high school girlfriend and his new girlfriend Ramona, because of course Scott is a player. He gets all the women. All you need to know is just to be like Scott and you'll be the man, right? Thanks, Hollywood. Again, I believe this is why you see this relationship crisis in millennial men's incel crisis. These people were fed these programming, and this programming leads to them basing their own personalities off of archetypes that they see that's being projected at them by the media constantly. And this archetype of Scott was adopted by many people. Yes, it's true. You know them. I know them. We all know them. We all grew up with them. And this is the result. It's even worse with the Zoomers. Just program the population to be this non-threatening nice guy, and that's what will attract women, and that's what will attract success, and that's what will bring you through life, is being this non-threatening nerdy boy. No hate against nerds, though. I mean, remember, nerds used to be different back in the times, right? They were into science, technology. They developed programs. They developed computers and engineering and all this stuff. That's what a nerd was back then. They invented. Now it's a nerd. A nerd is Scott, a dweeb. Maybe that's the better term, dweeb. These people who are just obsessed with Funko Pops and being passive aggressive. Anyway, back to the movie. The dream sequence where he's chasing Ramona in the school is very symbolic. Notice there's checkerboard patterns all over the floor and all over the wall. And he's trying to get her through the gateway. Again, another gateway will show up again. He goes on a date with Ramona. The date is just awful. Like, there's no chemistry. Again, she's aloof, cold, rude at times, and he's just acting like the little friendly puppy, following him around until eventually she literally leads him by the hand. The woman taking the masculine role, and the male being, once again, I like this. I use this term in the last movie, but concubine. That's what I see them as. They're concubines. Scott is her concubine. And of course, she takes him through a portal with a 5-point star on it. It's not occultic at all. It's not symbolic at all. It's just, let's just throw this into this movie. Let's just make a portal with a pentagram on it. It's regular, right? It's normal. Don't even question it. And to me, it's the beginning of his initiation through her trauma. He has to fight through her trauma in order to be worthy to be with her. He has to battle all of her demons. He has to battle the X's in order to be worthy of her initiation. So that's what this portal represents. It's from the mundane into her dimension that she has created with all of her trauma and baggage and MK Ultra mind control, which we'll get into. And of course, this is the other axis of the film, is the fighting of the X's. Of course, Scott, look at him. Has the classical hero build, the classical hero physique, right? He isn't fighting anyone, okay? He doesn't train, he doesn't know anything about fighting, but he is, the video game warrior. Like, everyone thinks because there was just this amazing video game player that they are a video game master warrior, and that translates into real life. Of course, all of Scott's video game knowledge has made him a formidable warrior. Of course, he would never actually win any fight, but not in Hollywood. Hollywood, he is the legend. There is a heavy retro gamer aspect to this movie because this is what the hipster and indie sleaze scene at the time was obsessed with: looking retro, acting retro, being against the grain, being depressed, being sad, while being exactly part of a consumer's trend that they were manipulated into Hollywood and corporations to buy into. So look at me, I'm an individual, except I'm not. Now, as we progress in the movie, just on a cinematic level, it starts to really fall apart. I mean, this movie is really weak to begin with. It's really bland, boring. The acting's rough. The writing is really bad. But the Patel fight scene is just, looking back on it, it's really awful. It's hard to watch. And at this point, it was a struggle for me to continue to watch this movie. But I'm here to do it for you guys because we have to get through this together. All right. So it continues on, more of the same. Scott is being effeminate and needy towards Ramona. He faces more exes. More baggage is uncovered. More neediness. Also, Ramona has a deeper voice than Scott, I've noticed in this movie. Her voice is actually deeper than his. I just, yeah, it's. And by the way, the actress of this movie ended up marrying Ewan McGregor. Okay, a completely different type of guy than Scott, right? That's real life. Now, this is the false reality, the portal with the pentagram that they've taken you through to construct to make you think that this is how it actually works. And then there's the vegan part, and of course, vegan programming and making you think that if you don't eat meat, dairy or eggs, you're somehow inferior, and that those who don't are going to have psychic powers or something. Yeah, okay. Have fun with that. Have fun with all those vegans who are totally not losing their minds after several years of veganism. Okay, moving on. The final boss is Gideon, a record producer who has MK Ultra brainwashed Ramona via a microchip in the back of her brain. He also sits at the top of a Illuminati pyramid and has a ball-like gathering to celebrate his new band he's procured. And Scott tries to fight him. He dies. He comes back. And the lesson he learns when he comes back is self-respect. That's what they're telling you, that he's learned self-respect. If Scott learned any amount of self-respect, he wouldn't be chasing this Ramona around like a puppy dog. And he would have just moved on, forgot about her, and started developing himself and finding a woman who isn't wrapped up in the record business as a concubine to a record producer. But of course, he has to try and win her over, win her back. And so, what does he do? He has to fight the boss again, but this time he has a better weapon. And of course, he cannot defeat him alone. He needs the help of Knives to do it, his other ex girlfriend. So, not even by himself, after all his trials and tribulations, he still cannot defeat the final boss without the help of Knives. So, what is the arc here? What is the message? What's going on? There is no arc. If you take Scott at the end of the movie and then put him beside Scott at the beginning of the movie, they are the exact same person in the exact same place. Actually, I think now, at the end of the movie, he is worse off because he lost his band, he's homeless, he's unemployed. His band is moving forward and has developed a record deal. They're employed, they're making money, they're progressing. He throws that all away just so he can be with Ramona. Right. Okay, that's his arc. And what's her arc? Her arc is if you put her at the beginning and the end, it's the same. She's angsty and wants to leave the city that she was in. And at the end, she's angsty and wants to leave the city she's in. Okay. And wants to run away from her problems like she was in the beginning. Okay, gotcha. All right. Great, great heroic tale. Tale of the heroes, tale of the century. Or I know, like this movie gets a lot of love on YouTube. I mean, I've seen reviews that said it's like a perfect movie. What? No. Even if you remove the programming aspect from it, it's a horrible movie. And then there's all these little messages they have little just popped in there to help the population develop into what they want. It's great, right? It's a great film. Near perfect. No, this movie is just a prime example of nice guy programming, beta programming, simping, hard simping, and it's just awful. Just awful. Thank you if you made it this far for listening. If you have any movie that you want me to look at in this type of frame, especially when it involves what you would consider millennial programming, let me know. I'll take a look, let you know what I think, what I see. And I had to do it this way because, yeah, Ramona got a lot of hate for this movie. And she became a known archetype within the female sphere. But you can't just put it all on the women. I mean, look at Scott. That's an archetype too within the men. And we've all met that and dealt with that. And it's becoming more and more common to meet and deal with. So that's why I needed to look at it from this angle. Again, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.